Have you ever looked around at your life and thought, everything is technically okay, so why do we still feel so empty? You have responsibilities, maybe even achievements. You smile when you're supposed to. You function. You show up. And yet, deep inside, there's this quiet hollow space you can't quite explain. If that feels familiar, I want you to know something right away. You're not broken. You're not ungrateful. And you're definitely not alone. Sometimes the hardest emotions to understand aren't loud ones like anger or obvious sadness. It's the quiet ones. The numbness. The sense that something is missing, even though you can't point to what that something is. You might go to work, study, take care of your family, scroll through social media, laugh at a few jokes, and still go to bed thinking, why does everything feel flat? You might not realize this, but feeling empty isn't the same thing as being sad. Sadness has a story. It has a reason. Emptiness feels like the absence of a story. It's like standing in a room that looks fully furnished but somehow feels uninhabited. Maybe your life looks fine from the outside. Maybe people even tell you how lucky you are. You have a stable job. You're doing well. You have friends. And you nod. Because logically, you know they're right. But logic doesn't fill the hollow feeling in your chest. Here's what psychology says. Emptiness often shows up when we're disconnected. Not necessarily from people, but from ourselves, from our emotions, from our values, from our sense of meaning. A lot of us grow up learning how to perform instead of how to feel. We learn to be good, to achieve, to make others proud, to avoid conflict, to keep things together. Over time, we get very good at functioning, but we may lose touch with what actually moves us. Think about this. When was the last time you asked yourself what you truly wanted? Without filtering it through what you should want? Without comparing it to someone else's expectations? Sometimes emptiness is the quiet cost of living on autopilot. Imagine someone who has been chasing goals for years. Good grades, a stable career, a certain body image, a specific lifestyle. They finally reach a milestone, and for a moment, there's excitement. But it fades quickly, and underneath it, there's still that same blank space. Studies suggest that when our goals are driven mostly by external validation like approval, status, or comparison, they don't nourish us deeply. They give us short bursts of satisfaction, but not lasting fulfillment. It's like eating junk food when what you really need is something nourishing. It fills you temporarily, but you're still hungry. You might not realize this, but your nervous system also plays a role. When you've been under stress for a long time, whether from work pressure, family expectations, relationship strain, or even just constant exposure to bad news, your body can shift into survival mode. And the survival mode isn't about feeling joy, it's about getting through. When you're in survival mode for too long, your brain can start to dull your emotions. Not just the painful ones, but the pleasant ones too. It's a protective mechanism. If you can't feel the lows as intensely, you also won't feel the highs as intensely. This can feel like emptiness. And then there's emotional suppression. Maybe you were taught that certain feelings are too much. Maybe growing up, showing sadness got you dismissed. Showing anger got you punished. So you learned to push feelings down. The problem is, emotions don't disappear just because we ignore them. They go quiet. They go underground. And sometimes what we experience as emptiness is actually a backlog of unfelt feelings. Have you ever sighed? You don't even know what I'm feeling anymore? That confusion can be a sign of disconnection from your emotional world. There's also the possibility that you've been so focused on being strong for everyone else that you forgot what it feels like to lean on someone. You might be the dependable one, the responsible one, the one people go to for advice. And on the outside, that role looks admirable. But inside, it can feel isolating. Here's something gentle but important. When you're always the one holding everything together, who's holding you? Sometimes emptiness grows in the space where your needs go unmet for too long. Not dramatic needs, not big, visible crises, just small, consistent neglect of yourself. Skipping rest, ignoring your creativity, silencing your opinions, staying in conversations that drain you, staying in roles that don't fit anymore. You might not realize this, but even subtle misalignment with your values can create a quiet ache. For example, if you deeply value connection but spend most of your time in shallow interactions, you might feel empty. If you value growth but feel stuck in routine, that emptiness can grow. Here's where it gets deeper. What if the emptiness isn't a sign that nothing matters, but a signal that something does? Think about that for a moment. If you are completely content, completely aligned, completely connected, you wouldn't feel this hollow space. The emptiness might actually be your inner self whispering, "This isn't it. There's more for you than this." Sometimes we interpret emptiness as failure. But what if it's awareness? There's a concept in psychology about meaning. Humans aren't just wired for pleasure. We're wired for purpose. We want to feel like our lives have direction, that what we do matters beyond just surviving or impressing others. When your days feel repetitive, transactional, or purely productive without meaning, your inner world can start to feel drained. You can be busy all day and still feel empty at night. Let's paint a small scene. You wake up. You check your phone, emails, notifications. You rush through breakfast. Work or school takes up most of your energy. You come home tired. You scroll. Maybe you watch something. Maybe you talk to someone briefly. Then you sleep. Repeat. Nothing is catastrophically wrong, but nothing feels deeply alive either. Over time, this routine can slowly disconnect you from your sense of aliveness. You stop noticing what excites you. You stop asking big questions. You just keep going. Another layer of emptiness can come from unresolved grief. And the grief doesn't only come from losing a person. It can come from losing a version of yourself. A dream that didn't work out. A relationship that changed. The person you thought you'd be by now. If you've quietly mourned something without giving yourself space to process it, that unspoken grief can turn into numbness. Studies suggest that when we avoid processing painful experiences, our brain may dampen overall emotional intensity to protect us. That means joy feels muted too. And sometimes, feeling empty is your body's way of saying, "You've been carrying too much for too long." Now we want to gently shift the perspective a little. What if emptiness isn't something you need to fight, but something you need to listen to? Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" maybe you could ask, "What is this feeling trying to tell me?" Is it asking for rest? Is it asking for honesty? Is it asking for change? Sometimes the most powerful turning points in life start with discomfort. Not dramatic breakdowns, but quiet realizations. The moment you admit to yourself, you don't feel fulfilled. That honesty can be scary, but it's also freeing. You might not realize this, but self-awareness is the beginning of reconnection. And this doesn't mean you need to quit your job tomorrow or completely reinvent your life. Often, it starts much smaller. It might start with asking yourself one simple question each day. What do you need right now? Not what your family needs. Not what your boss expects. Not what social media says you should want. What do you need? Maybe you need 10 minutes of silence. Maybe you need to cry. Maybe you need to create something just for fun. Maybe you need to say no more to something that drains you. Emptiness can also shrink when you allow yourself to feel again, even if what comes up is messy. Journaling can help. Talking to someone you trust can help. Even saying out loud, "You feel disconnected lately," can be powerful. And if your emptiness feels heavy, persistent, or overwhelming, it's okay to seek professional support. There's no more shame in that. Talking to a therapist or counselor doesn't mean something is wrong with you. Sometimes it just means you deserve a safe space to untangle what you've been carrying. This video can't replace that kind of personalized care, but it can remind you that your experience makes sense. Let's also talk about comparison for a moment. In a world where everyone posts their highlights, it's easy to believe that everyone else is deeply fulfilled and you're the only one quietly struggling. But social media rarely shows the empty evenings, the self-doubt, the numb moments. When you compare your internal reality to someone else's curated exterior, you will almost always feel like you're falling short. You might not realize this, but chronic comparison can drain your sense of identity. Instead of asking, "Who am I?" you start asking, "How do we measure up?" And that shift can create distance between you and your authentic self. Rebuilding that connection often requires curiosity instead of criticism. Instead of judging yourself for feeling empty, try getting curious about it. When does it feel strongest? After certain interactions, during certain routines, around certain people. Patterns can reveal what your emotions are trying to say. And then there's connection, real connection, the kind where you don't have to perform. If you've been surrounded by people but still feel alone, it might not be about quantity. It might be about depth. Studies suggest that feeling emotionally seen and understood is a key predictor of well-being. So maybe instead of asking, why do I feel empty? Another question could be, where do I feel most myself? And then, gently, you can start moving a little closer to those spaces. Sometimes emptiness is a sign that you've outgrown something. A mindset, a role, a version of yourself that once kept you safe but no more longer fits. Growth can feel uncomfortable. In-between stages often feel blank and uncertain, like standing in a hallway between two rooms. Not fully in the old one, not yet in the new one. That hallway can feel like emptiness, but it's also transition. If you're in that space right now, try not to rush yourself. You're allowed to not have all the answers yet. You're allowed to feel uncertain. What matters is that you're paying attention. Small steps can slowly refill that hollow space. Creating meaning doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be as simple as helping someone, learning something new, spending time in nature, practicing gratitude in a way that feels genuine, not forced. It can be reconnecting with parts of yourself you abandoned. Maybe you used to draw, or write, or play an instrument, or dream about something you quietly set aside. You don't have to turn it into a career. Just touch it again. See how it feels. And most importantly, be gentle with yourself. Emptiness doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean you're incapable of happiness. It means you're human. You're a human being with emotional needs, psychological depth, and a desire for meaning. And sometimes, those needs whisper instead of shout. If you're feeling empty right now, try placing your hand over your chest for a moment. Breathe slowly. Remind yourself this feeling is real. And it's allowed. You don't have to solve your entire life tonight. You don't have to suddenly feel full of purpose tomorrow. Start small. Notice one thing that made you feel even slightly alive today. A song, a conversation, a quiet moment of peace. Follow that thread gently. And if this emptiness has been with you for a long time, please don't carry it alone. Reaching out for help is not weakness, it's courage. There are people trained to help you explore this safely and deeply. You deserve a life that doesn't just look fine from the outside, but feels meaningful on the inside. And maybe, just maybe, this empty feeling isn't the end of something. Maybe it's the beginning of a more honest relationship with yourself. If this resonated with you, you're not alone.